Got it. Okay. Good to see you all. Welcome in. Let's begin together by allowing ourselves to settle, take our seat, and take a deep breath as we acknowledge the end of this day. And join me to say the Shema together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. We already know that there's much more to the Shema than just that, but we'll use that as our call together for the evening. This evening, we're moving forward in our outline to the second part of the preparatory verses that come before the Shema itself. Last week, we explored the opening introduction, Ahava Rabbah, in the morning, or its evening counterpart, Ahavat Olam. And at least the way our Siddur lays it out, it sort of gives us Ahava Rabbah as an opening part. And then when we turn the page, we see the next part, which is what I want to look at with you tonight. So if you have your Siddur, you can open up to page 275. And this, just mentioning again, this version of the preparatory verses is the morning version. So if we were to explore both morning and evening, we'd see that the evening introduction to the Shema is very similarly themed, but it's a different composition, and maybe that's going to be for another time. I'd really like to look at this part with you. So let me go ahead and screen share. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to start back up here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. So I'm just showing again the outline. And here we are in week 3, August 31st, V'ha'er einenu and V'havienu, which I've subtitled Opening Our Eyes and Getting Organized. And hopefully that will make sense as we go through these verses. But I want to just begin by making sure we all understand that what we're looking at tonight, so there's the little video clip from last week. It'll be part of the recording of last week's class. If you haven't seen it, you can take a look. It's a beautiful setting of Ahava Rabbah. V'ha'er einenu. I went ahead and just pasted it into our source sheet, and you'll see here, this is one of the places where one of the places where the traditional liturgy and the Reconstructionist liturgy depart from each other. And we'll talk about that as well. So let's just look at the text first, and then have some things to study about it. So this is almost the same exact text that what I have on screen, almost exactly the same as what's on 275 in your Siddur. And in a minute, we'll see the places where they're not the same. Okay, so let's just walking through the text for its basic meaning. We're saying, V'ha'er einenu, enlighten our eyes, b'toratecha, with your Torah. V'dabek libenu b'mitzvotecha, and make us cling. We say libenu, which is our heart, our hearts. But to remind us that in biblical Hebrew, lev, heart, means more like consciousness or awareness or intelligence, something like that. It's not the way I think we in our time think of heart like our emotional center somehow. And in this case, lev means something sort of bigger than that. So the prayer is saying, make our our consciousness cling to the practice of the mitzvot. Veyached levavenu, and unite or unify our consciousness. Le'ahava u'lira. Sorry, if I could just ask for people to mute. There's just some background noise that I'm hearing, and I think it might be, I can't tell where it's coming from, but if everybody could please mute, thank you. Unify our hearts, our consciousness, I'm saying, in love and awe. So this is an important piece here to get. Here, I'm just highlighting these words. Remember that in the passage before this, Ahava Rabbah, which means expansive love or great love, that theme of the relationship between love and law gets really deeply emphasized and reinforced. And so we're still holding on to it. It's that the word love is going to come up over and over again. We're going to have it in Ve'ahavta, which is also based on that same le'ehov, to love. So, but here we're being asked to grapple with a new facet of that love relationship that we are trying to cultivate with what we call God, which is that it's not just about intimacy and closeness and all the wonderful things we associate with love, but it also has another facet, which is awe or fearsomeness, yirah, which is to say there's also a relationship of distance, a relationship of awe, A-W-E. On Sunday morning, I don't know how many of you may have heard this, Phyllis Lerner brought up this wonderful challenge about the word awful and awesome. She was talking about students that she's worked with who don't speak English as their first language. And they said, why is awesome only some of awe when we use it to mean something that's full of awe? And awful is full of awe, but it means something that's terrible or not good. So it just stuck with me. It's a kind of a fun way of playing with that word. Here, it's just awe, but awe as a counterpart or as a balance with love. So again, the whole phrase is V'yached levavenu le'ahava u'lira et shemecha. I'm looking at you, Walter, just because you happen to be on my screen right now. We've been having an interesting exchange about how do we understand even the idea of shame or shemcha, shame in the Hebrew, meaning name, your name. Here, I read it as a way of understanding God. So it's your name, but it's really you, capital Y-O-U. Unify our consciousness to embrace both of these facets of a relationship with faith, love and awe. Okay, and now I'll keep going on the next verse. V'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed. We will not be ashamed ever. For all eternity, we will not be ashamed. Ki v'shem kodshecha, because your holy name, Hagadol v'hanora, the name that is great and full of awe, batachnu, in it we are safe, we can trust. We don't have to feel ashamed. Back to this word nevosh. V'nismecha b'yeshuatecha, and we rejoice in your salvation. We're going to unpack more of this. Hold on. I know it's a lot of big ideas getting thrown around here. Okay, but just to finish going through this, Vahavienu l'shalom, bring us together to shalom. What is shalom? Peace, wholeness, completion. Me arba kanfot haaretz, from the four corners of the earth. V'tolichenu komamiyut le'artzenu. Now we introduce the idea of artzenu, our land. That this relationship of faith is deeply connected with having a place on the planet. And it's baked right into our Shema prayers. Guide us forward to realize our own land, komamiyut, to manifest our own land. Ki el poel yeshuot ata, because you, God, are a God who works salvation or saving acts. Uvano v'acharta mikol am v'lashon. And here's the part you'll quickly recognize that's not printed in our Siddur. And us you have chosen from among all, literally this means from among all tongues. It's just showing the deep way that language and identity are woven really into one thing. So really it's saying we've been chosen from among all people, from every nation and language. V'keraftanu l'shimcha hagadol, and so draw us close to your name, so to you, your great name. Selah, which is like an exclamation. Yes, please. Be'emet, in truth. Lehodot lecha, to give thanks to you. Uliachedcha, and to unify with you. Be'ahava, in love. So again, so we had love here at the beginning and love here at the end, and then we have what we call the chatima, the kind of final sealing line of this passage. Baruch atah Adonai, as we say so often. Habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava, the one who chooses the people Israel in love. Okay, now I hope if you have your Siddur, let's look at that and just compare the version that's here, which is somewhat different. So starting at the top, I'm on page 275 now in the Siddur. Top line is the same. To open our eyes or enlighten our eyes with your Torah and make us cling to your mitzvot and unify our consciousness in love and awe with your name, with you, God. And now you'll notice here in our version, what we just saw on screen, velo nevosh, we will not be ashamed. This version is a somewhat more expanded formula dealing with that question of shame or humiliation, and we'll see why in just a minute. We will not be ashamed or humiliated. We will not stumble ever at any time if we have this relationship going on. For this great and holy name and awesome name is one that gives us security. Our relationship with it gives us security. We have no reason to be ashamed. There's more to say about that in just a minute. Okay, and now I'm going to skip down to the latter part on 275, the 3 lines, which begin the same way. V'havienu l'shalom, bring us together from the 4 corners of the earth and guide us towards the realization of our land, because you, ki el poel yeshuot ata, you are a source of saving acts is the best way I can put it. But you notice that we don't say the part about being chosen. That's been excised from our Siddur. We just continue right on with V'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol. Let us be drawn close to your great name in truth. Okay, let me just pause here and see if there are any just questions about what we've done so far. Is anything, I mean, I know there are, I would certainly have huge theological questions, so I'm not asking you to bring those up just yet, but just anything sort of technical or concrete that doesn't make sense. Do you see the difference between the traditional version that's in front of us and the Reconstructionist version that's in our books?
Rachel, the Chatima is also hugely different in the
Yes, yes. Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I glossed over that. The Chatima, the final line in the traditional version, Baruch atah Adonai habocher, the one who chooses be'amo Yisrael, the people Israel, the nation of Israel in love. And our version in our Siddur just says, God is the one who loves God's people Israel. So it still refers to a unique relationship between Israel and God, but it's not an exclusive one, and it's not one that shuts out other peoples from having their own unique relationship with their faith. Thank you, Larry. Okay, let me just stop the share just for a sec and just see anything else right now. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I just have a question about the word shame. Is it, I mean, I know what it means to me in a social context, to be socially ashamed in front of others. is there a different kind of religious or spiritual shame in front of
Yeah,
God that's different from,
yeah,
you know,
yes. That's what. Well, let's go there right now. Um, so here we are in the midst of getting ready to say the Shema, and the tradition is guiding us to think about our experiences of shame as a people. That's the root of this part of the liturgy. I think that it's not a far stretch to then apply it to our own individual experiences as people. And we're going to read in just a second. I have some readings for us to look at about shame and this part. But I think it's important for us to understand. Well, let me just go to one of the readings I have. I think will explain this better than, let's see, here's 6 weeks to the Shema. Oh, no. No. Let's try again. 6 weeks to the Shema. No. I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, goodness. Okay, I've got to try one more time here. Okay. There. Okay, can everybody see this? Okay. Actually, Bob, would you read this English that's in front of us?
shame plays a key role in telling the Passover story. In fact, according to the Mishnah, Pesachim 10:4, which was the first guide to helping families tell the Passover story, we must start with shame and conclude with praise.
Okay, pause for a second. So I don't know if people are familiar with this idea that every year at the Seder, that's what we're doing. We're going from shame, or sometimes people use the word degradation. We're going from the low to the high. That's like the journey of the Seder. And keep going, Bob, now.
Later generations argued about what was so shameful. Was it the fact that we were slaves or that we were idolaters?
Okay, pause again. So that's what's happening at the Seder. And the rabbis argued, is the shame about having been enslaved, which is a place of low. You're low on the social order. You're pretty much at the bottom of it. Or was it even worse that we had been idolaters during the time of Abraham or at other times in our history? So it's the rabbis argue about this, and they don't come out with one firm answer, but that question lingers, and this idea of starting with shame, like when you want to strangle your dog, and starting with shame and then rising towards a place of freedom and exaltation. Okay, Bob, that'll be my last interruption. Keep going.
But in any case, that basic framework of beginning by addressing our shame has been built into every Seder for at least 2,000 years.
Okay, great. Keep
What
going.
an extraordinary instruction. Shame is one of the most powerful, uncomfortable emotions we have. It causes our faces to burn or close down. It separates us from ourselves and from others. The impulse of shame is to hide. We feel deeply unworthy, embarrassed, humiliated, unfit. We remember shameful episodes for a long time, and that sense of discomfort stays long after the fact. So why should we start telling our liberation story with shame?
Keep going.
The Haggadah gives us an answer. In every generation, we are to see ourselves as if we came out of Egypt. This is not a ceremony, but what happened once upon a time in some mythic context. This is our story. It's about us, our lives. Liberation is only possible when we begin healing the shame we carry with us.
Okay. So this is a class about the Shema, not about Passover. But one of the ways we understand this verse in these introductory passages, where am I? Velo nevosh, this part right here. Velo nevosh leolam va'ed, which corresponds in our Siddur to that slightly longer, just a different version of the same prayer. Velo nevosh, velo nikalem, velo nikashel leolam va'ed, is to say, part of the gift of faith is to lift us out of a place of the shame of idolatry or the shame of enslaved exile. I'll put it that way. Okay. And then part of the reason I pulled this reading out from Rabbi Lisa Goldstein is she starts to make the connection for us as if we need it to be made for us. No, I mean, she does a beautiful job of this, I think, of connecting the peoplehood story of shame with the internal work that I think we have to do all the time. As the Shema is saying, we have to do it every morning. Say these words every morning so that we can address the feelings of shame that inevitably creep in to every life and that are also baked into our memory of our history as a people. I wanted to just bring us to one other. So this is a commentary from a beautiful new Siddur that I have. It's an egalitarian Sephardic Siddur. So maybe Larry, would you be willing to read this part, the inclusion of this particular petition?
Yeah, the inclusion of this particular petition among the litany of requests in Ava Rabbah is telling. It is not enough to have the consciousness imbued with Torah that we seek, probably.
Sorry.
We also must be able to find pride and joy in it. Causing embarrassment is a cardinal sin in Judaism. The Talmud famously teaches that it would be better for someone to allow themselves to be thrown into a furnace than willingly embarrass another person. That's from Bava Metzia. Although purposefully hyperbolic, the sentiment remains the same. We ask not only to have our eyes enlightened and our hearts bound in love, but to feel pride and glory in that status of closeness to the divine.
Great, thank you. So here, the editors of this newer Siddur are exploring this theme even more and putting it on a personal level, saying it's about us as a people, but it's also about how we each experience our relationship with God. And you can see in the Hebrew, here again is that nevosh is to be ashamed. We will not be ashamed. Lo nevosh le'olam va'ed, because we have this relationship of deep trust and faith in God, or at least as we say these words, we're encouraging ourselves to turn in that direction. And the sentence ends by saying, Nagila v'nismecha, we will be joyful and celebrate or rejoice in this salvation, this idea that we're being saved from the alienation, the exile of feeling ashamed. No question that there's much more to say about that one line, but I would like to continue because there's an important second part of this that I want to make sure we get to. And I pulled out my talit. It's evening, it's not time to wear a talit, but I thought it was important to just practice this together and go over it together. When we get to this passage here, Vahavienu l'shalom, the custom is, remember we're saying this in the morning, so we would have a talit on. So I have my talit, I'm going to put it on. The custom is to gather the four corners together. As we're saying, bring us together in peace. We have a physical ritual to do with those words. Vahavienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz. And the way I was taught is as we're saying that, we wrap the tzitziot around our left forefinger. And the left forefinger represented to our ancestors a direct connection with the heart, which again was considered, is still maybe, but certainly then was considered the seat of consciousness. So it's the same thing at a wedding. Many traditional Jewish weddings, you'll see the couple will put their wedding ring initially on their partner's left forefinger before the partner then can take it and put it on whatever finger they wear their ring on. So now I have my tzitziot wrapped, and I've I've done this physical thing that helps reinforce what the words are saying. Bring us together from the four corners of the earth and guide us to realize our own land. You may be familiar with the custom in some communities. We do this sometimes at Adat Shalom to sing these words to the melody of Hatikva. Va'avienu leshalom. It's a very common custom in the diaspora. Many years ago, we were singing it that way at Adat Shalom, and one of our Israeli members, who was a visitor at the time, who had, was deeply educated as a Hebrew speaker and a student of the Tanakh, but had not been in synagogue, really, maybe not at all, was just shocked that we'd be singing the Israeli national anthem as part of a prayer service, and came to me and said, "What is the story here? Why are you doing this? It's our national anthem. Like, please don't do that." And so I'm just sharing that over the years I've been so aware of maybe backing off of that custom. And I think as we've watched over the last 20 years, I think so many questions have arisen about our relationship with Israel for many people, that saying these words provokes more questions for us. I'll put it that way. Okay, so now, just keeping a half an eyeball on the time. This is an alternative translation by a student. She's now a rabbi, but she had been a student at Hebrew College of Boston. And this is her way of understanding what these words mean. So can I ask for another reader who would be willing to say these aloud? Anybody? Audrey, would you? Or no, if that's not.
Brighten my eyes with your wisdom. Cleave my heart to the right action. Unify my heart through love and awe of your presence. Through this balance, I will be resilient in the face of shame. I trust in your presence, which is both great compassion and awesome strength. Find a place of rest and security in the balance. Through trust and through joy, may I be assured of my inherent worthiness before you. Gather me in from all the exiled parts of myself. Bring them in peace to you. Help me not hide myself before you, but stand upright in all my human imperfections. You are the one who saves me from myself, and I actively choose you over all whims of culture and vulgarities of language. Bring me close to your name, your true name. Help me play my part in acknowledging you and unifying you through my love. I bless you, Holy One, who chooses that I wrestle with life in love.
Thank you,
Rabbi
Audrey.
Shoshana, yeah.
Yeah, Rabbi Shoshana Meira Friedman. And I keep forgetting, I want to give you all the link to this source sheet so you can look at these things if you want. And I also have the links to the places where some of these things come from. But you can see how she has, Rabbi Shoshana Meira Friedman has tried to come up with alternative ways of hearing some of the passages. Like, for instance, what she does here with the Chatima, the traditional Chatima, which says, Habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava, the one who chooses the people, his people, Israel, with love, in love. She turns that into, I bless you, Holy One, who chooses that I wrestle, since Yisrael is the one who wrestles with God, a God wrestler, that she's saying in her version that I've been chosen to wrestle. That's what it means for me to feel chosen. And just to go back to what we were saying about shame a little bit earlier, here's what she does with the text of love and awe. Bring those together through this balance of love and awe, ahava and yirah. I will find the resilience I need to face shame, or in the face of shame. But I think you could read it also as to face shame. So we've come to the end of our half hour for this week. I'm going to stay on for a little while longer in case anyone wants to talk about any of this or have any questions. And otherwise, I wish us all a good evening, and we will continue next Wednesday at 6:30.
I just have to say, I have a couple of clients who I worked with today